Good afternoon, interwebs people. Thanks for bearing with. Had a slight technical issue just before going live, just to keep things spicy on our penultimate Meet the Team. If you're new and you don't know me, my name's Tessa Bide, and I'm a theatre maker, performer, producer based in Bristol, UK, which is where I'm coming from you live from today. Normally, my company tours shows all over the UK and abroad, but during lockdown, we started to get a bit creative, and we launched this series of Meet the Team interviews, basically so I can have a chat with my friends and my colleagues, but also to have a really nice kind of archive of all these different meetings with professionals from the theatre industry who you might not know exist. So if you've been lucky enough to see a live show, then you've probably seen actors, performers, dancers, but you might not have seen some of the more behind the scenes professionals like directors, dramaturgs, writers, designers, prop makers. So what this kind of series has been about is meeting all those people and finding out what their jobs really involve. It's not all just having fun on stage. There's quite a lot more to it. So that's we thought we'd make a little series of interviews with different professionals, and this is actually our penultimate one. So we've done, I think this is our 11th one. So far we've met a fight director, a dramaturg, a writer, a director, a few performers, but we haven't yet met a dancer and a movement director, which I'm really excited to bring in today's episode. So we're going to meet Bryn Thomas, who does both of those things. But before we meet Bryn, I just wanted to give a little shout out to what we're doing at the moment in Tessa Bide Productions. So in my company, we've launched this crowdfunder to create a brand new piece of work for families to be able to access anywhere. So at home, it could go into schools, it could go into libraries. It's an audio adventure that you guys are in control of. So you choose where you go, what happens on the adventures, and you act them out in your living room or in your garden. We're creating it at the moment. It's all very exciting. Did the recording last week, but we're a little bit short on our budget to finish it. So if you enjoy today's interview with Bryn and you want to support the company and to support us paying Bryn and the other freelancers who have been coming on every week, then please do share our crowdfunder or donate if you're able to. I'll put a little video and another link at the end. So that aside, we're going to have a really nice chat with Bryn today, and if you have any questions for him kind of throughout the interview, then just write them into the comments, and I can put them to Bryn at the end. We're going to see a little bit of live demo and have a little have a chat about the ins and outs of what it involves being a choreographer, a dancer, and a movement director. So without further ado, hello, Bryn Thomas.
Hello.
Hey, pal.
Hi.
Thanks so much for coming on. How are you doing?
I'm all good, yeah. I'm in sunny Bristol and yeah, having
It's
quite a
nice to
nice
have you
time.
back here.
Nice to be.
You went up north, didn't you, to Leeds for a bit to do some training, and I didn't realise you said earlier that there's a really great dance scene up in Leeds. Did
Yeah,
not know
yeah,
that.
yeah. I think well there's the Northern School of Contemporary Dance up there, so it's like
Mm,
maybe 60 professional dancers every year coming out.
wow.
And some of them stay in Leeds. So yeah, it's a really good dance scene up there.
Yeah. Oh well, it's nice to have you back in Briz, even though I can't see you face to face. It's nice to do this thing. We met quite a while ago, didn't we? We met on when we were creating a strange new space, which I think we've been streaming it online for the last month as part of the Bristol Refugee Festival. So some people watching this might have seen it. And Bryn, you worked kind of as a co-movement director on that, didn't you, with Laura Street? So we did the R&D, I think ooh, I'm going to say 2016, and then I think the make was in 2017, and then it toured forevermore after that. But For me, it was the first foray into. It was the first time I worked with a movement director, let alone two movement directors, kind of together, and I think it completely changed my practice, and it completely changed how I work as a theatre maker, as a performer, and yeah, I put a lot of that to you. So cheers.
Thanks. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really interested today to just hear a bit about like what your process is with other companies. I know, you've said before that kind of every show is very different when you're working as a movement director. And there's going to be loads of people watching who have never heard that term, don't know what that is. They might have heard of dancer, they might have heard of director. So yeah, if you guys at home watching have any questions for Bryn, even if you're watching this not live, you're watching this later on YouTube, pop them in the comments and I can always pass them on to Bryn and get them answered for you as well. Great. So Bryn, tell us what it's like being you.
What's it like being me? Ooh, big question.
No, just
No,
that.
what's it? Well, I guess what it's like being me in a professional context is so I basically trained as a dancer. And then afterwards, I've sort of worked between working as a dancer, as a performer, working as a choreographer, working as a movement director, and working as a teacher. They're kind of like the four things that I do. They kind of crop up fairly sporadically. It's kind of hard to predict. Like I never had a sort of period where I haven't been sort of flipping between those four things. I guess, should we start by talking a little bit about movement direction? Then we can talk about sort of the dancing.
Yeah, that would be great. I know you're saying
later
kind
on.
of flipping through the different jobs and the different kind of hats. That's been a real through thread on these interviews with just people. We have to diversify, and which means we have to have lots of different hats and lots of different projects and jobs, because it's quite rare to have one thing going solidly. And yeah, I really feel you on the kind of the juggling a few different roles thing. It's kind of what we have to do to survive, really, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I was thinking about it the other day, and there are all these different hats, but they all come from very much the same place and the same sort of background. And the kind of the more of like all of these different jobs I do, the more I'm thinking that it is like, rather than like, oh, I need to be a movement director now, or oh, I need to be a choreographer now. It's more just like, here's me with all of my background and all of my different skills in the room doing what I can for whatever this production or this lesson or whatever it is. So that's kind of my thinking about it now, which kind of, yeah, particularly when I was sort of starting off doing movement direction, it was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure this is what I'm trained to do, but I think it was, that realization really helped, that it's just me in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe that was around the time of A Strangely Spaced. It was kind of when you were starting out into movement direction, and I think, yeah, there was, and because I didn't know what that involved either. Suddenly when you put a big shiny label on a thing, like now you're a movement director, it's like, oh right, so I should be working in a really different way. But actually, no, you're just a person who understands movement and everything that comes with that, and that can be put into so many different contexts, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I remember, when we started working on Strangely Spaced, I think that was my third or fourth job as a movement director, and I was just sort of starting to feel like I was like, okay, I kind of understand what this role is now. And then Strangely Spaced, I was a co-movement director with the amazing Laura Street. So that was then another shift into like, what does it mean to be like a co-movement director? Like what are the specific bits of my skill set that are useful in that project, so it's not to sort of like have me and Laura doing the same thing, but to use each of our strengths.
Yeah.
So I think, I maybe break down the kind of like my thinking about sort of generally as a movement director. It's the it kind of I break it down into kind of three sort of sections of what I feel like I want to offer in that role. So the first one is just as a choreographer, just very sort of plain and simple, and that's sort of for each kind of scene. That's like basically like what can the movement be for this scene in order to tell this story, or in order to, I don't know, add a whole different sort of element to this like moment in the play.
Yeah.
There's that moment which is kind of the choreographer is kind of like a scene by scene, like what are the actual like construction of the movement in this thing, and then there's the kind of more kind of dramaturgy role in it, which is to do with making sure that the movement throughout the piece is where it's consistent, and you're like sort of building this world with the movement, which is what I think movement's really good for in a play, is building this kind of consistent kind of flavor, or kind of, yeah, this world that you're a part of. But also within that, like using movement to kind of really play out the kind of the arc of the kind of energy throughout the play, to match what's happening with the dialogue and with the text or with the narrative. So yeah, being able to sort of step back from what's sort of immediately happening in that scene, and understand what's happening in the sort of larger context of the play.
That's really interesting. We just to jump in there. Last week we met a dramaturg, Stuart, who talked about that kind of stepping back and seeing the arc of the narrative and the energy, and he kind of he kind of talking from a story point of view and a kind of energy point of view. But that's really interesting that's also part of the movement director role as well, to kind of go, oh, hang on, you know, they're moving in this way in this scene, but oh, we've lost you, but maybe you can still hear me.
Don't know what that was.
I think I was talking too much and it got boring. But yeah, that's really interesting. That's, you know, we learnt about that last week in Stuart's talk, of that kind of stepping back and seeing the whole piece as a whole, and yeah, taking that into a movement role like makes complete sense. I hadn't thought of it like that.
Yeah, well, as a movement director, you're almost like a secondary director, so you have got that space to be able to step back sometimes. You're not always completely in the thick of it. If a scene doesn't require that much movement, then you can kind of step back a little bit and have an eye on that kind of overarching narrative. That the story kind of comes into it, but I'm also really into the kind of physical energy that you're giving off from your performance, and how much you can add to that or tone it down or kind of tweak with movement. So that's kind of a big part of the job. So that's kind of the second strand. So you've got choreographer, and then sort of this kind of dramaturg role. And then the third one is almost a kind of teaching role, where you, in order to get your vision across of what you want to do with the movement, often you're working with actors who aren't necessarily trained dancers, you know?
Yeah.
So you often, well, I often end up kind of doing a lot of kind of teaching and a lot of basically training the actors in order to move in certain ways, or to have kind of more kind of range within what they can say physically with their body. So I know we did quite a lot of that with Strange New Space, and we spent sort of sessions where it was just us two, and we weren't necessarily creating anything directly for the show, but we were kind of doing a bit of work on how to tell stories with our body, and kind of find different textures and different kind of
and it was finding a kind of common language that then you could say, you know, all those kind of words like that you hear in music, like staccato and legato. So staccato means like short and sharp, and legato is very smooth and fluid. Words like that, but extending that into kind of weight and direction and impulse and all that kind of thing. We kind of set that language in those sessions, didn't we? And then later on in the rehearsal room, you could kind of say, you could just say one of those words that we had worked on, and instantly that I could feel that in my body and go into that. So yeah, finding that common language was really useful for me.
Yeah, and I find coming from a dance background, that was something I had to kind of work out how to translate for working with actors, and I found words really useful because like actors are often quite wordy people. They enjoy words, and can really basically they can really connect to that. To if a word, I don't know, impact or rebound or something, they can go, oh, I really understand what that means, rather than like, so I want you to just be a bit more like
yeah.
I found like being able to put words to it was,
and yet they're not so technical that they're like a dancer. They're not like dance talk, are they? I mean, you know, you've got a master's in dance, you can do the talk, you can do the dance chat, but that would turn off a few some performers, I think, who aren't from that world. They're really like tangible, tangible kind of words and triggers for us.
Yeah, you want to bring people with you when you're doing it. You don't want to make people feel like they're not qualified to move on stage. You want to make people feel like they are completely like able to do it, because they are. So yeah,
that's great. Shall I put some footage of kind of when we were in rehearsals for a Strange New Space, or do you want to come to that later?
Sure. Yeah. We can do that now. The first one where I think Laura is working with you and I'm on the outside.
So we've got that on at the moment. So we can't hear what you're saying in the video, but basically you're kind of you're leading this improvisation, aren't you? By kind of giving us what's the word? Giving us provocations as we're improvising. It looks really weird. My hair's mental, but
I mean that kind of task is like a very, it's my kind of like bread and butter for creating movement sequences, or for getting actors to move in a way that isn't just their sort of the way that they would normally move. So I'm using kind of an improvisational task that's kind of the overarching thing, which is the drawing, like writing in the air. I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then using kind of two external factors to kind of mess with it. So I'm using Laura's probably just doing it, that she's offering you kind of physical like stimulus, so just like literally physically moving you, so you end up in these different positions. And then from the outside I'm saying like I think I'm giving some different textures, like what if you were underwater.
Oh no, you've gone again. Well, we could do a little bit of watching this vid whilst Bryn comes back. Me with a crazy top knot. We've also got another little bit of footage from that rehearsal process. This was in the R&D of A Strange New Space. So R&D we talk about, it's kind of research and development, which is kind of an early stage that you do whilst you're kind of figuring out what the show might be and how many people might be in it. This is the other clip. Oh, hi, Bryn. Nice of you to join us. I was just saying what an R&D involves. You know, it's much more playful than a rehearsal, and this footage looks kind of weird because it's very experimental. It's very it's us kind of really experimenting with you know, we're not even kind of creating content at this stage. We're just playing with movement. But it all informed the show later on.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like if you watch a show and you're like, oh man, that's such like a clever idea, I wonder how they came up with that. It's like 9 times out of 10 it will be because they spent like an hour playing around, like trying to find stuff. And it's not necessarily just this kind of like burst of inspiration. It is sort of like tools and techniques that you can use to kind of get to that pace.
Exactly. We're watching at the moment. We're watching the improvisation where we're all kind of drawing in the air with different textures. So I think Adam, the director, is giving us provocations as me, you, and Claire, who is our production assistant on the show, and we're kind of drawing as though our pen is stuck on the paper, and then drawing as though the pen is water, and kind of all these different textures. And I think eventually this came into the show. We had a scene where the character Amira, she drew out her kind of home picture using a torch. All the lights went down, and then we see her kind of draw this picture kind of her home, remembering her home, just using a torch, and then we see the actual picture of what she's just drawn on paper. But yeah, I mean, for kind of 1 minute of show, there was probably 2 days of exploration throughout the R&D and the rehearsals.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dark art, isn't it? The kind of movement direction stuff. It's like if it's done well, you just don't notice it really, and then if it's done badly, then you're like, oh, that didn't look right for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll just put on some photos from the finished show. I think what was really useful for me in that show is like every time before I went to perform it, you and Laura had given me, or maybe it was just you, had given me a kind of menu of different movements that I had to act out just before going on stage, and they were kind of all the different states that I would have to get into for the show. So and they kind of started with the very serene anti-gravity slow-mo stuff, and they went right up to kind of on one side, and then they went right up to the blast stuff. If you don't know, the show was kind of roughly melded into a space journey. So yeah, I went from this kind of very slow motion anti-gravity, getting into my body, and then all the way up to this kind of very frenetic blast off energy. And then yeah, that was our bread and butter before doing any show, just to remind me to get into my body, not into my head. And I found that really invaluable.
Yeah, I end up using like movement states a lot more than specific choreography, particularly when doing movement direction for with actors, because it like I find it frees up actors to concentrate on other things as well, rather than being like, I need to do this on 5, 6, 7, 8. It's you can get these really beautiful movement sequences fairly quickly without having to sort of meticulously choreograph everything, so the actor's like really stressed out by having to hit that on the 6 or something.
Exactly.
They're sort of a really efficient way of making sort of movement for shows.
And especially if you've got lots of variables or lots of things that can change during a show, and you've got a very active audience like we do in our shows, because they're young and it's very kind of interactive and participatory. You know, you kind of need to be able to shift and change and react to things that are happening. So if you just know that you're in a state and you're not kind of having to hit all these marks, you know, all the time, it allowed me to be much freer.
Yeah, I think it can be a little bit scary to begin with, though, being like, what is the choreography? So no, you like really engage with this state. Yeah, it can take a little bit of getting used to. I know when I started doing dance performances that were more kind of improvisational and had more kind of open scores in that way, I was a bit like, whoa, there's nothing to hang on to here. I need to be, be really in it and really concentrate on what that state is in order for it to kind of come across. Can't just kind of hit the points of it.
Yeah. Cool. Do you want any of your other photos, or should we get to them in a bit?
Yeah, maybe in a bit. So maybe some of the photos. There's a photo of Up Down Man, which is a play. It was actually the first play I ever did the movement direction for. But I was also in. It was a Myrtle theatre company. They did a show called Up Down Man, which we did at Salisbury Playhouse and the Tobacco Factory. And and that was kind of my first like foray into it, and that was like utterly terrifying to begin with. I was like, wait, you want me to what? Yeah, it was also one of my like first jobs out of uni, out of training. So yeah, I was very scared doing it, but it went well, I think. And yeah, it was
Great.
one of those shows where I was also in it as well as
Mm.
doing movement direction on it. So that was kind of a whole different task as well. Being able, like, we talk about being able to step outside of the
Yeah,
feed of narrative. I was having to do that like while in it.
that's
So
really hard. Yeah.
yeah, so that can be sort of part of a job if you're, yeah, that's like another job that you could end up doing.
Yeah. And how big was the cast? How many people were in the show?
Um, that was five,
Hmm.
six with me, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was quite and also quite intimidating because the cast were all quite a lot older than me. And like, it's like yeah, that's something to get used to if you end up kind of doing movement direction. Because when you're a dancer, you often end up sort of choreographing on your mates who are all kind of your own age, and then you come
Yeah.
into do movement direction on a play, and the actors are playing characters of all different ages, and you have to kind of
Yeah.
like back your skills and be like, okay, I do know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah. And but also different abilities. You know, something you'd choreograph on a kind of 22-year-old dancer obviously wouldn't work for a much older actor, or different physical abilities and things. That must be that's part of the role as well, I guess, kind of
Yeah,
working with
definitely.
who you've got in the room and what you've got in the room.
Yeah, I actually do quite a lot of work with I don't know, adults and teenagers with like special educational needs
Hmm.
and or like various physical disabilities as well. So that kind of comes with the territory with that kind of work, and it's
Yeah.
actually I find it like way more interesting in like lots of ways than working with like able-bodied or
Yeah.
like yeah trained dancers or actors.
Yeah. Because
You've got to
suddenly
sort of solve
everyone's
all of these problems. Yeah.
yeah, and everyone's got their own take to everything. Instead of these kind of blank slates. I don't know if it's like drama school where they kind of want actors to be these kind of blank slates that can be very easily molded. I don't know if that's the same with dance. But yeah, there must come a bit more interest when you've got people who have really different bodies and really different abilities and takes on things.
Completely. And like my interest with choreography and with movement direction as well is not about um, it's not about like showing off. It's not,
Mm.
I wrote, well, my MA was about like virtuosity. It's not about the person that can do 10 pirouettes. I have no real interest in seeing somebody who can like, yeah, do 10 pirouettes. I have far more interest in seeing somebody who can tell a bit of their own story with their movement. So
Mm.
working with actors of various ages and working with people with like learning disabilities, that's like it's like far more interesting and you've got a far richer tapestry to work with there um, when you start choreographing before you've even like done anything. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely where my interest is with that.
Cool. And then I've got one from Castle Builder. I can see Kid Carpet here.
Oh yeah.
Was that movement direction as well?
Yeah. So that's another example of like a very different movement director job, which is where they'd basically made the whole play already, but they had a couple of songs in it where they wanted some like movement and dance to kind of like spice things up. Um, so I kind of came in. I came in once really early, and then once very late in the process to kind
Mm.
of just. It was less so than like working on Strangely Space and Up Down Man, where I was like involved in the whole process throughout the
Yeah.
whole thing. I got to really kind of like shape that arc and narrative. This was very much like I had to come in and like understand what their arc and narrative was, and like basically just give them what they needed rather
Yeah.
than like coming with my own thing. So you
Mm.
can end up just having to kind of basically offer a service to these
Yeah.
things, to the play, whatever
Yeah.
it is. You're like, okay, I understand what the kind of texture and where this sort of fits culturally, and like with that play, it would have been really weird if I put in like a ballet sequence or something. You know?
5, 6,
It just wouldn't
7,
have.
8.
Yeah. Or even just some movement that didn't look like it was something that they would do. It was, yeah, if I sort of made a really sort of movie sequence, then it would have, people watching it would have seen like an external eye. It would have been like an external creator, and that's not what that piece was about. So I needed to kind of almost like hide myself within their movements. So I did a lot of kind of getting them to dance to the songs, and then seeing what those songs were about for them. And
and picking out. I remember you were doing that with me a lot, actually, kind of setting. I would improvise a task, which means kind of make it up on the spot, and I would kind of play with something, and then you'd go, "Ooh, I really liked this movement," or you keep doing this with your back, or you keep doing this with your hand, and I really like that. And for someone who's quite new to, well, yeah, newish to working in that kind of non-verbal, very physical way, it was really nice for my confidence to go, oh, okay, well, I do that anyway, so yeah, I can do more of that, instead of you kind of putting these movements onto me, which would have felt quite quite difficult, I think.
Yeah. I definitely prefer that way of working.
Must be quite a lot of kind of improvising and like making, reading the situation as you're going, though. You must have to think quite fast on your feet when you're in a rehearsal room.
Yeah,
if you can't kind of come with things pre-made.
Well, yeah, definitely. You've got to back yourself coming in, being like I if I'm starting like working on a piece, movement direction wise, then I will have lots of ideas and stuff to bring initially, because that, it feels, I don't know, would feel unprofessional to not do that. But then often most of that just goes out the window fairly quickly.
And I guess like your preparation, what you're bringing is like, a lifetime of dance, and a lifetime of moving, and a degree and a master's and all of that stuff. You don't necessarily have to pre-choreograph a routine. You've already got a lot of, you've got the skills kind of in you anyway, so that's a toolkit that you've got built in, right?
Yeah, you've got to, just like trust the toolkit, trust that it's going to come up with something. And sometimes it doesn't. I've definitely spent full days in a rehearsal room being like, I have no idea what needs to happen now.
I think everyone does, though. That's kind of part of it, and that's the beauty of collaboration, right? Like, and hopefully you can be in a rehearsal room that has, a nice, welcoming, safe environment that anyone can throw their hands up at any time and be like, oh, I'm actually putting a blank on this one. Can we try something new, or does anybody else want to chime in? That's certainly how I like to have my rehearsal rooms.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's also a part of movement direction work which is like setting the tone for the cast and everything, because you're very often asked to run warm-ups and like exercises and stuff in the morning when you like first get to a project. Like every project I think I've done movement direction for, the first thing I've had to do is like run a group warm-up and exercise and everything. And like within those warm-ups you can really set the tone for the rest of the day. You can kind of bring a kind of lightness, or if that's what's needed, if everyone's feeling quite intense and nervous, or you can bring like a bit of focus, or you can bring if everyone's kind of like, having a bit of a tired day or whatever, you can do an exercise that really brings people's focus together. So it is kind of a dark art. There's lots of kind of little subtle things you can do to kind of make everything work a bit better.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, amazing. Do you want to talk a bit about teaching as well? I've got an amazing photo of you here, like anti-gravity, like leaping into the air in a dance class.
That's I mean, the teaching. I've done a little bit of teaching to like movement in theatre schools. That's been like a little bit of it, but generally just teaching. Teaching dance classes in schools, and I've basically taught every kind of level of dancer from like primary school all the way through to like professional class in Bristol. and you kind of have to just adapt. It feels like most performing artists will teach as
Yeah,
part of
definitely.
like their income,
Yeah.
but I think I really enjoy teaching as well, like as for kind of an art form in itself. Like
Yeah.
it's this whole thing that like we do often sort of out of like financial necessity, but it's also
Mm.
something that is really, it's a real skill, and it's something that I've definitely sort of had to hone over the years
Yeah.
in order to sort of lead better workshops. Yeah, that photo's from, I was actually teaching on a BTEC in Bristol that's run by Boom Satsuma, um,
Great name.
which is just started up. And so if there's anyone who's kind of finishing, it's instead of A levels. So if anyone's kind of finishing GCSEs or
Mm.
around that kind of age,
Yeah.
then and are interested in dance, then it's definitely a really good route to go. I like really wish that had existed when I was
Yeah.
that age.
Boom
Um,
Satsuma.
Boom Satsuma, yeah, that's that's the name.
Amazing.
Yeah,
That's
and
just
it's
cool to say that, all your friends are going off to college and you're like, yeah, I'm going to Boom Satsuma, so see you later.
yeah. It is, yeah. It's a cool course. So it's taught all apart from one permanent staff member. It's taught entirely by like freelancers. So we all know what's going on in the world. So yeah, no, it's really good for that.
Great.
Yeah. Uh, just say a bit about like how I sort of got into dance and what my kind of pathway
Yeah,
into
that would be
that was.
great.
For anyone who's kind of sort of thinking about doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so I think a good thing to say is that I didn't start until I was quite old. So a lot of people think like in order to be a professional dancer, you have to have been doing ballet since you're 2.
Yeah.
And that was just not the case. Like I started doing a bit of hip hop dance when I was like 11, but didn't really do much. And then the school that I went to in Bristol was offering dance just as like a like once a week,
Yeah.
like year 8 and 9, and then I liked it, so I did it for GCSE. I was like, oh yeah, this is fun,
Cool.
and then just kind of did it for A level as well, just purely based on the fact that I enjoyed it. It
Yeah.
wasn't any kind of idea to be a dancer.
Mm.
But then while I was doing A levels, I was like, thinking about what you should do with your life. And dancing was the thing that I enjoyed the most. So I was like, okay, so how can I actually do this? And I found something called the CAT schemes, which is the Centre for Advanced Training. They're kind of little hubs all around the UK. There's one in Exeter, there's one in Swindon, there's 2 in London, there's one in Birmingham, there's one in Leeds, and I think there's one in Newcastle. There might be some others as well, but I basically went to the one in Swindon, alongside my A levels, which was a very mad time. I was doing like 4 days a week dance training alongside doing A levels.
Wow.
So yeah, that was quite intense, but that basically like set me up. That was when I started doing ballet there, and that was the first time I'd done ballet, and I was 60. I think I might have even been like 17. So yeah, you don't need to have been doing it
Practically
since you were a kid.
middle-aged in the dance scene, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. So I basically was doing that. I was in a youth dance company called Cohesis as well, which runs in Bristol, but there's loads of youth dance companies all around the UK. And that was really good for getting performing experience and just like getting used to actually dancing rather than just taking ballet classes or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did that and then auditioned for various dance schools. I think I auditioned for Laban and Rambert and The Place and Northern up in Leeds. I ended up going to The Place and doing my degree there. And then I went and did a postgraduate up at the Northern School of Contemporary Dance. So sort of flitted all over the place.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my kind of route through.
Amazing. That's really inspiring, actually, that it didn't involve starting at 2.
No.
I think I started dancing when I was about 9 or 10, and already by that point there were so many others who had started when they were kind of 3 or 4 that I was already like, oh well, I probably can't be a professional dancer, but maybe I can do you know, physical theatre, or at that time I was obsessed with Chicago, the musical. So I think I wanted to do musical theatre. Um, so so yeah, that's really refreshing actually that wasn't your route in.
Yeah. In terms of the movement direction stuff as well, while I was sort of a teenager, I was in Bristol Old Vic Young Company and did some stuff with Myrtle Theatre Company as well. And that's kind of how the movement direction stuff came back around, because Myrtle then hired me when I'd finished my training because they knew me. And yeah, so if you're planning on going into dance training, then also like go and do some theatre stuff, go and do some music stuff, go and do some like anything basically, because it'll all come back around, and yeah, it'll end up being in your favor for sure. There's a lot of dancers haven't really done much theatre stuff, so it's definitely like it's like a whole different world. And like there've been times when I haven't been getting any dance work, but I've been getting movement direction work and teaching in a theatre school, movement stuff, and that's sustained me. So it's definitely worth diversifying when you're young.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. That's a really nice kind of it's quite a clear route in, really. Like I've been talking to people in these last few months, and everyone's kind of had these kind of strange kind of twisting paths into what they're doing, but it looks like you've had quite a clear, quite committed route. You know, you knew what you were doing. Do you think that there's more of a move with as theatre is moving towards you know, like small scale and devised theatre, so theatre that's made up by the company and that wasn't scripted to start with. There's quite a big movement towards that. It's quite trendy in contemporary theatre. Do you think and actors are now encouraged to also be devisers and musicians? Do you think there's has dance played a part in that, do you think, or what's happening to the dance scene as theatre's moved in that way?
I think well, it's kind of two things. So with the devised scene sort of like getting more and more prominent, then there's more and more space for movement directors to come in, because I don't know, there was traditionally so many roles, like unless you're quite a big company, but I feel like a lot of my work has been with these kind of small scale devised companies where you come in and either you come in for a day, or you come in for a week, or you come in for the whole thing. So that's it's kind of opening up space for that, which is really nice. Dance wise, the dance scene is kind of moving away, I think, from this kind of very sort of pure abstract dance, and it's kind of working in a lot more kind of narratives, and like dancers have to be able to speak on stage now, really. Like it's pretty standard for you to have to use your voice on stage. So it's really useful for that. You basically you can't get away with just being like good at like flexible and strong. Like you need to have these performance skills in order to get work.
Is that something that's changed recently?
Maybe not that recently. Maybe in the last kind of 10 years. Something like that. Yeah, like the number of jobs that are just kind of pure dance work just seem to be kind of declining, and the number of jobs that are kind of like, oh, we need a dancer in this play, or we need an actor in this dance piece or something. There seems to be a lot of crossover as well.
I'm seeing that a lot. I think, you know, like you see a lot of roles now that are like actor musician with puppetry skills, and and that's like, okay, that's three things. I'm an actor, I'm a musician, and a puppeteer. You know, and that's just a kind of standard advert that you'll see for a performer. So that's interesting that that's happening for dancers as well. I hadn't realised that.
Yeah, definitely. Particularly with the speaking on stage thing, and being able to. And as a dancer, I think there's also a move away from the choreographers sort of making everything up. So you definitely, if you want to be a performer, then you also have to have those kind of choreographic skills as well.
Mm.
'Cause all the dance work that I've had, I've basically made up most of my part. Like, the choreographer is kind of more a like overseer and the structure and like giving the exercises to begin with, and then you're very much in collaboration with the choreographer in that sense. So yeah, that you have to kind of have those skills as well.
Have you wanted to create your own work? Do you have any kind of, you personally, do you have kind of ideas or projects that you want to get off the ground yourself, or are you more happy kind of going into other people's processes?
Well, I've definitely in the past sort of 5 years, I've like made a few things, and mostly kind of little solo things. At the moment, I'm kind of moving away from that a little bit. I don't know, I was getting to a point where I felt like I didn't know what I wanted to say at the moment. Didn't have like a thing that was like burning to get out. So at the moment, I'm kind of like training and getting good, sort of trying to veer back more towards the kind of performance end of things, because I missed that basically. We did loads and loads of performing when I was younger, and then haven't really. I performed on stage maybe like twice in the last like 2 years, something like that. And it's been sort of mostly teaching and choreographing and movement directing. So yeah, I'm kind of moving back towards the performance side of things, which is hard because you've got to get in shape.
Yeah, well, and injury is a big thing, isn't it? I mean, you broke your foot or your ankle?
Yeah, I tore ligaments in my ankle, which actually takes longer to heal than a break.
Heal than bones. Yeah, so
it wasn't good. Yeah.
That's a big
injury,
consideration, isn't it? The injury thing.
Basically, every dancer's life, like you're gonna get injured at some point unless you're incredibly lucky. So you've got to just be able like accept that as part of the territory that it comes with, and like be able to kind of go and do some other stuff. Like I had a year out where I worked in a school as a support worker and really loved it for a year. I've worked as a builder. I've worked in shops. I've done done so many sort of other things as well, that kind of fit around this kind of freelance life. So and it doesn't mean like it's kind of added up to being maybe like 2.5 years where I didn't sort of do any kind of dance work other than teaching, and it's been kind of it's like a little bit of a challenge to be like, okay, I can still do this, and but in reality, like I'm still able to do it, so it doesn't mean you can have like a gap of even a couple of years if you just need a break from doing whatever it is that you're doing. Like people think that when you're doing these kind of arts jobs, it's like your passion and you need to be like 100% committed all of the time, and it would be nice, but it's not that realistic to be like 100% into something all of the time.
That's really true.
So I've definitely had periods where I've like not been that into dance for a while, and like, but the kind of arching thing is that I've always come back to it. Like whenever I've had more than like a short period of time off, then I've always been like, got to dance now. So that's kind of, I guess maybe that's the kind of like burning desire.
It's in you, but you don't. It's one of those things that like as soon as you're forcing yourself to do it, it becomes a little bit pointless almost, doesn't it? Like it should be a joyful expression thing, so as soon as you're kind of feeling you're doing it because you have to do it, that's a really weird kind of
I had a while where I was like, I'm just gonna dance for me and not try and get paid for it, and then just gonna like work in a shop or something and then do dancing as like a hobby, and then kind of quickly realized that meant that I just wasn't working with lots of really great people, and like was not getting paid to do the thing that I'm really good at. So it's like, hang on
a sec.
maybe I should just get paid to do this and work with like really nice people. So,
I'm missing being in a room with other great people, like you at the moment. I'm looking forward to that happening again at some point.
It's a tough job, but it is really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I loved working with you on that project, and I'm sure there'll be many more. I think I was saying to Stuart last week, like if you haven't worked with a dramaturg before, and then you work with one, you're like, oh, this is invaluable. How have I ever worked without you before? And then with movement direction, it's exactly the same. You know, I had never worked with a movement director, and then suddenly I had two of you on A Strange New Space. And I think on the R&D, because like Laura couldn't do every day, so then you were flip flopping it, and then we were like, for the make of it, we were like, well, we can't have just one of them without the other one because they're both brilliant. So like, it's one of those things that you're like, oh, of course you have a movement director. Like, yeah, but unfortunately, the way that funding goes, you know, they're seen often as a luxury, but they really shouldn't be. You know, I think it's a really, really valuable, crucial part of the process.
I agree.
Is
But
there
I would.
anything else you wanted to? Did you want to show us anything, or did you want to talk about any of the other photos before we head over to some questions?
No, I think yeah, we can go with questions.
Cool. If any of you guys are watching at home and you want to put a question to Bryn, just pop it in the commenty thing. I guess one thing that I've been asking people in these series is like, is there a kind of dream job or a dream kind of role that you're like, oh, you know, that's the goal, or you know, that would be amazing to work with that company. Is that a thing for you?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I've got like these kind of really, really big scale, big European dance companies where they have like these incredible sets. Like there's that Pina Bausch piece where they've just got like a massive boulder in the middle of the stage with like rain coming down on it and stuff. I'd just love to be in a company where they have that kind of budget and like
Yeah.
you can dance in these like massive stages with huge sets and like lots of like a cast of like 30.
Yeah, that'd be
That would be
amazing.
great, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, rocking about, you know, touring around Europe, just like, you know, different cities, and that would be pretty sweet.
Yeah. I've done one European tour and it was like so much fun. So yeah,
Really,
definitely,
yeah.
definitely another one would be great.
Great. And for people who are kind of uh you know, getting into dance or getting into this kind of world, are there specific like disciplines or like specific classes or styles that they, you know, should have as a kind of base level? You know, like does everybody need to have ballet, or
Mm.
um you know, or not? What's your opinion on that?
Mm. Yeah. So there's like my opinion on it, and then which is probably not what the kind of consensus opinion on it is. So I'd really really love for people to not have to do ballet and to bring just what they're to like train in something, like to do, I don't know, like I love working with people who've got martial arts backgrounds. They see movement in a different way.
Mm,
People who come from, I don't know, even just like a massage background or I don't know, something like
mm,
that, because which is that's who I love dancing with and who I
yeah,
love working with. But I think the kind of, in order to kind of get your kind of more dance work or whatever, then the kind of strings to your bow that you kind of need, I guess, a ballet and kind of release technique, which is like a specific form of contemporary dance, which basically everyone does at dance school. Um,
okay,
sorry,
okay.
ringing. Yeah, that's kind of the standard, but I'd really love for that not to be the case.
Yeah, I love working with dancers for puppetry. When I do my puppetry workshops and weekends and things, if there's a dancer in there, because you understand, you know, weight and gravity and breath and, you know, all of those things are so inherent in what you do, and they're so in your body, is that actually dancers make excellent puppeteers. People always think like, oh, I haven't been to puppetry school, I don't think I can, you know, I probably shouldn't do it in that job, but actually there's something about really knowing your body and how bodies work and move that really lends itself to puppetry. Have you ever tried it? Have you ever tried puppetry?
Not really, not really.
Come
I did a
along to
little
one of
bit.
my classes.
I did a bit with you.
Yeah.
No, it's something that I remember going to see Warhorse when I was like sixth form or something. The like massive hamstring puppets, and I was like, that could be really fun.
Yeah, and
I'd be
actually
really.
there was a bit of a blur in A Strangely Spaced. There's a scene where I've got these bike lights in my hand, and I kind of become this kind of monster creature, which in the show it was a kind of journey of a child refugee's journey to find a safe place to live, but it was seen through the metaphor of this space adventure, space journey. So in the space journey it was kind of like this weird monster from outer space, this kind of alien, and then but in the real life journey what was really going on was that they were kind of searchlights, weren't they, kind of at a border. But for me that was like I was kind of puppeteering my hands, like I was puppeteering like I would puppeteer, you know, a puppet, but really I was becoming, it was like mask, puppetry, and kind of dance, physical theatre, all in one. That's what I really. That's how I really like to work.
Yeah, that's well. There's another sort of like job option for dancers as well that a few of my friends are doing, which is like creature acting.
Ooh.
So like in films, all of the kind of, I don't know, like creatures, like monsters and goblins and like all of that kind of stuff, where they either
God.
do like the CGI like points on their
Yeah.
body, or they
Yeah.
literally are in the costumes doing the thing.
Yeah.
I've got a few friends who do that as like quite often as like a form of income, and they really love it. Like it's a really cool job. I think I haven't actually done it, but yeah. It seems really fun.
That sounds hilarious.
Kind of like full body puppetry.
Yeah. I mean, Steph, our first one of these interviews was with an actor called Steph, and she's done like video game stuff where you're a character in a video game, so you have to do all the movements and all the act out kind of the story, but you're completely CGI'd afterwards. So it's a whole other way of working, isn't it? When we talk about just theatre and just live stage kind of stuff, but really there's loads more kind of options out there as well.
Yeah, there's lots, especially with all these new technologies coming in. Yeah, I've done like 2 projects now which use VR goggles. Dancing with that stuff. Seems to be kind of where a lot of the funding's going at the moment in the arts as well, like cross collaboration with technologies and things like that.
Yeah.
So definitely something to, if you're into kind of technology, then it's definitely a cool way to go down.
Yeah. So I just wanted to wrap up. Everyone's been quite quiet. We haven't got any questions from the audience. Probs, because you're just answering everything as you go. But something that I've been kind of wrapping up everyone's interviews with is say I'm watching this as a parent, and I know that my child is really into dance, or feels like they want to go in that direction, or I'm a child and I feel like I want to be going in that direction. What would you do next? What do you think would be a next step?
I guess it kind of depends where you're at. Like if you're in school and they're not offering dance, then like find a dance company. There's youth dance companies all over the place. The CAT schemes are great. There's like various sixth form colleges and stuff offering dance. But yeah, you'll be able to find ballet classes wherever, but you don't need to do ballet until you're a bit older. If you're sort of doing A-level dance and wondering like what the kind of next step there is, if you're like, there's basically there's the really good dance courses at various kind of universities, like Roehampton's really good. De Montfort's really good. Falmouth's really good. And then there's the kind of conservatoire places. So you've got Laban, Northern, the Place for contemporary. Rombert's kind of in there, but that's contemporary and ballet. And then you've got the kind of musical theatre schools like London Studio Centre and Erdang. They're and like Lipper in Liverpool. So they're kind of options. I wish I'd known at the time about the kind of European dance schools. So if you're if you're like auditioning for like UK dance schools, but haven't heard of, like, I'm actually going to one in Salzburg next year called Seed. I'm going to do like a refresher year. Nice. And a Salzburg Experimental Academy of Dance. And then there's one called Parts in Belgium, which is excellent. That's like probably the best dance school in the world. Like, bold claim, but it's,
I'm not going to counterclaim. I don't know.
I'm like, within reason. It's really good, basically. Yeah. So there's that school, and like, if you're kind of, I don't know, say you're at university or something studying dance, or I know lots of, well, I've got at least 2 or 3 friends who did like 1 year training at university, and then they went and re-auditioned for like a conservatoire, or like they did 1 year at like my friend did 1 year at Laban and then went to Parts for 4 years or something. So it's not like once you've made a choice about something, you have to stick with that forever, or for the whole for like 4 years or whatever. Yeah, I think the people who I've seen sort of come out the best from their training is the ones who've like decided or seen like a thing that they want to do, and just been, and not sort of taken it as like, oh, I can't do that. It's like, no, like, if I want to go and train in Belgium for the next 4 years, like, I can.
Yeah. And are there kind of grants and things or loans that can help you fund that kind of stuff if you're, if money is an issue, which it is for most people?
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah. I mean, you get student loans to cover most of the kind of degree courses. There was my MA, I got a grant to do, so it was free. The dance schools in Europe, there's like various funds, I think, across the UK. So normally the dance schools in Europe, you can't get funding from that country, but you can get funding from the UK to study abroad. There's like Erasmus funding and that kind of stuff. So there are options. They just take a bit of sort of like diving through Google.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, thank you so much, Bryn. I wanna see you move. So I can't wait until you're touring across the world in a dance show, and I'll probably have to. Yeah, exactly. So I'll look forward to that. But in the meantime, thank you so much for this. It's been really lovely to catch up. Good luck with your training, and see you on the flip side.
Thanks very much. I hope it was informative.
It was great. Thank you. Bye. If you guys aren't zipping off, I just want to borrow your time for just a few more seconds. Thank you so much for coming today. I really hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit more about this world of movement, direction, choreography, dancing. If you have any questions for Bryn that you're kind of popping into your head now, pop them in the comments of whatever you're watching this on, and I can always put them to Bryn, just comment on later. We've got lots of other stuff coming up. This is our kind of schedule for this month. I know we're kind of at the end, but we still have one more Meet the Team Wednesday. Next Wednesday is with Joe Stathers, who is a lighting designer, projection designer, lighting. He's kind of head of lighting. I think, or everything technical at Bristolovic Theatre School, I think. But yeah, and I toured with him for many years. So he's going to be finishing off this series of Meet the Teams next week at 3 o'clock. This Sunday we've got live storytelling, bedtime storytelling at 6:30. And then we're having a little bit of a break in August because we're making our brand new audio adventure for the end of the month. So if you're still looking for stuff to to keep you active and to keep your little ones entertained, head over to our website, and there's a page there called What's Online, and it's basically like a big archive of everything that we've been doing over lockdown. So there's all of our storytelling sessions, there's all of these Meet the Teams you can see there, and there's workshops that I've filmed as well. So head over there and you can spend a good long time working your way through all of that. And to finish off, I'm just going to play the video of the crowdfunder, so you can know a little bit more about this project that we're making. It's really exciting. I hope you agree. And if you've got a sec to share our crowdfunder or donate to it, that would be amazeballs. Thank you so much. I'll see you on Sunday for the storytelling, and then our last Meet the Team next Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Take care. Enjoy the sunshine. Bye. Firstly, I just want to say a huge thank you for you watching this video. This is a really difficult time to fundraise for projects, and with all of the uncertainty, it means a lot that you're even watching this video. If you don't know me, then my name is Tessa Bide, and I'm a theatre maker and performer based in Bristol, UK. My theatre company makes shows for young people and their families. You might have met us in a theatre, outside a library, or in the middle of a field. We aim to inspire communities who don't normally have access to the theatre, using important stories, a bold physical language, and a few puppets thrown in for good measure. This year we were due to be touring our new show, The Anarchist's Mobile Library, around theatres, museums, libraries, schools and festivals, but unfortunately all of our 28 gigs were cancelled due to COVID. So we put our thinking caps on and started to make a plan to get this show out to you guys along with its important message. We made the Anarchist Mobile Library to empower children to read more and also to change the world. The original show toured in a caravan, and the audience would choose which adventures they would go on and then what happened whilst on them. We were training them to be anarchist librarians and to change the endings of stories they saw around them. This summer we are adapting the show to be an audio adventure, accessible digitally for you guys, our audiences, wherever you are. Children or families will be able to go online and access the show, but then we invite you to put down your gadget or go away from your screen to fully immerse yourself in the adventure that we'll be taking you on orally. I'm working with an amazing sound designer called Chris Menez, and together we're making these immersive sound worlds where you'll be transported to a pirate ship or a land of dinosaurs, a witch's kitchen, and loads more as well. As you journey on these adventures, your choices will pop up on the screen, and you'll be able to change the route of the narrative and leave you hopefully feeling empowered to change the stories that you see around you too. Basically, we want to make a new generation of tiny activists. So it's a really exciting project, and one that we think could really inspire and empower young people during a really uninspiring and disempowering time. Plus, it will keep the company afloat and give crucial work to artists who are really struggling to earn a living at the moment. So to fund it, we are rerouting the pot of money that we had to tour the proper show this year, but unfortunately there's a shortfall of about £1,000. Anything that we raise on top of this will go towards keeping Tessa Bide Productions running after this project is over. This comes to an end in September, so then I can keep paying all the artists, and hopefully that we can then take the actual caravan show out when it's safe to do so. As we weren't a registered organisation with Arts Council England, when they were giving out emergency pots of funding for organisations, we weren't eligible for these £35,000 pots. So we're trying to make do without, and with your help. So to say our huge thanks, we've got a host of really lovely rewards that we've collected from a few of our different shows, including stunning artwork by the artist Kathy Fisher from the book Perfect. We made a show of that a few years ago, and we've got this artwork in postcard form, in beautiful high quality A4 prints, and you even have the opportunity to receive one of the original paintings too. We have signed copies of my book, The Tap Dancing Mermaid, that I can inscribe for you as well. And you can book me for live storytellings or workshops over Zoom for your family or your class or your Scouts group. So we have lots of ways to thank you. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video, and I really hope I get to see you in a theatre really soon. Take care. Thank you.